What's going on, gang? Coach Joe, Doc and Jock podcast. I'm hanging out with Dr. Danny, and the other folks in the room are Jeff and Mikki Martin of Brand X Method Training. Fired up to have them in the show. You know, we've had four-ways before on this show, but never with another married couple. So we're fired up to have Mikki and Jeff on to join us. You guys have been... We're interested to talk with you guys because, you know, a few weeks ago, Danny and I had a really cool chat that got a lot of speed with our team, and folks were interested in how we were talking about training kiddos. But you guys have been doing the kiddo thing for a long time, and we thought it would be great to get the opinion of folks really doing it, not just guys making babies and hoping they do it right. So fired up to have you guys.
It's great to be here.
Cool.
We listened to that podcast. We thought it was very good.
All right. Well, that's more than my wife said about it. She didn't say anything. But
I forget if we talked about if we talked about anything embarrassing on that one. Joe, you probably said something about a vasectomy of some sort.
Yeah, we get into that here and then. But before we get into
it, you just did now, so that's great.
Well, you know, it kind of was a rough experience for me. So anytime I can bring it up, it's self-therapy there, Jeff. So we work it out that way. You were gone for a moment there, Jeff, as we started to talk because you were walking you were talking about a big dog. You got a dog named Tank?
Big dog, 120-pound American Bulldog that's blind. So anytime he hears a noise, he decides to defend and bark. So he was making a lot of noise at you guys. So we put him away. Hopefully he'll stay quiet.
Yeah, he probably knows I'm not a dog guy. You know, I'm not against pets, but raising 3 kids right now, they're the priority. And I think animals know that on my hierarchy of needs and what I'm going to deal with, they're low there. Danny, you got dogs. What do you do?
I got a dog, but I remember your cat, man. Joe had this crazy cat. They lived on like the 30th floor of this high rise in Honolulu, and this cat used to walk across the balcony, like the retaining like wall of the balcony, and would just like it'd be windy, and this cat would just be walking back and forth, you know. And I thought for sure it was going to blow off and die one day, but I don't think it ever did. Whatever happened to that cat?
Well, I didn't push it off the balcony, but I wanted to. What ended up happening was Jeff and Mikki, and you can talk about this too, when we had that cat before we had kiddos, and as soon as we had the kiddos, the cat started getting jealous, and it started doing really weird things like peeing on the carpet in front of us, doing whatever it could for attention. And I don't know if Mr. Tank, how did he deal with the kiddos? I think bulldogs are actually good with kids, aren't they?
Yeah. In fact, we got them as a function of our kids training program. We realized we had sort of innocently put pictures of our kids all over the internet with their names and their locations. And
Okay.
We're all a lot more savvy now. But back in the day, nobody thought about those things quite as much as they do now. And once we realized our error, we got a passel of big dogs.
Each kid got its own dog to sleep in his room.
Very good. I'll have to tell my wife about that. She is quick with the camera. I was reading the kids a story tonight to put them to bed, and I look up having this nice moment with my babies, and the phone's in my face. So it's interesting how we're taking all these pictures and whatnot, but we digress. You guys brought up the topic of the day. You were talking about the kids program, kids training. We know in the beginning you guys had a neat situation where you kind of helped CrossFit develop the CrossFit Kids program, and then you've kind of segued that into what you're doing with Brand X now. I think that's something we want to address before you get in here is this kind of the elephant in the room. I know that we are in the midst of an interesting discussion with CrossFit HQ, so we don't want to get into that too much and turn this into a gossip session about that. So, but you guys did start with that method of CrossFit Kids and training those kids and developing a model for working kids out. Do you guys want to get into your story about why you focused on kids and why training kids is so important to you guys?
Okay. Well, first of all, we don't want to get into a gossip session either. So
great.
We'll just kind of touch on the basis when we need to, and remind everybody that we are no longer associated with CrossFit.
Perfect.
And we absolutely do love the methodology in the community, and but we'll keep it to that.
Perfect.
Our story we had a martial arts gym for several years, and we had a really large kids population in the gym. And kind of how this all played out was, we lived across the street from a high school. Our balcony kind of looked out over the high school's gym, and every day we watched the track. We watched the kids come out for PE, and we watched 50 kids per class come out, and you'd have 5 to 10 be kind of engaged in what was going on, and 40 kids kind of aimlessly wandering around the track doing next to nothing or sitting in the stands. And our kids were starting to get older. They were entering high school age, junior high school age, and we were watching, and my kids, we had 4 boys, and my kids couldn't climb ropes, they couldn't do push-ups, they couldn't do pull-ups, and something. There's got to be a way to help kids be more interactive with physical fitness, not just sport, but being interactive with being in touch with their bodies and getting stronger and becoming good athletes, not just good at soccer. So we had kids our kids were growing up, they played all the sports, but here I come toward junior high school and high school, and I find that they can't really do really basic things.
Or what old school people like us, who ran around in our backyards or down our blocks in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
50s.
What we remember as what kids did, and the amount of time they spent outside just playing, and our kids did. We were lucky. We had about an acre at our house, and they ran around outside, but it still wasn't the level of basic physical literacy that we wanted to see, and our observation both of that in our own kids and there at the high school track, I think started to initiate a desire to be involved in somehow changing that.
And so, I had recently found CrossFit, and our 2 boys, Connor and Keegan, both expressed interest in doing the workouts that I was doing. And I could not talk any of the adults in our gym into doing it.
Okay.
Seriously, the story is I actually would do the workout, and one of my trainers actually said to me, "Have you seen yourself when you're done?" Nobody did these kind of workouts, but my sons thought they were great, and I thought that they certainly were compelling to me and engaging, and I thought, well, maybe my kids would like that, so I started getting my kids on that. And I started scaling the workouts for them. They started doing them with me after school. I pick them up, they come into the gym, we do the workouts. Pretty soon their friends started coming in wanting to do them. And we started doing that. And then I started to roll it out into our kids martial arts class, like for 5 or 10 minutes before the class started as warm-ups. We do a little warm-up, and then we would do a little metabolic conditioning workout. And the kids loved it. And we had kids in there from 4 years old up to 13, 14 years old.
Awesome.
And so we were scaling all of the workouts and doing this, and that's really kind of how it started. Eventually, Greg Glassman asked us to create a CrossFit Kids program and to create a T&P program that the affiliates could follow, and that's kind of how we started developing and then built the course that's taught, and that's kind of the genesis of what's going on.
Well, it sounds like you were training adults, kids, teens, all across the spectrum with.
Sorry, we weren't training adults. It took us almost a year of doing this before I got one adult to do it, and that was my wife.
Well, I'm interested. It sounds like adults have their own set of problems to deal with in terms of. In many cases they're immobile, they have motor patterns that are just really bad and they have to break them. And, it seems like kids would have their own unique kind of issues as well. What have you found working with as many kids as you have? What are the challenges working with kids besides keeping their attention?
For me, I don't look at it as challenges because it's just a different population. And it's fun. I mean, the challenge is fun. with the right pairing. You know, like for Jeff, he likes working with the teens, and that challenge really drives him. For me, the young kids. What you're saying about motor patterns and habits, definitely we don't have the habit problems, but with the lack of movement that we're seeing in just this decade of us really being involved with training kids, we've seen some serious changes in the physical literacy component of what kids walk in with. And they are even less, they're not only less physically literate, but they are less mobile because of the crazy amount of time that they're sedentary, and their diets and all of those things combined have led us to see a drop off in the last 10 years. It's really stunning.
The degradation over the last 3 to 4 years that we've seen is just amazing. In the old course, we used to talk about, you don't really need to mobilize kids.
Yeah,
you don't really spend a whole lot of time doing that. That's not true anymore.
No.
It's absolutely not true. And it's also not true that, 10 years ago, if we said to a kid, hey, we're going to bear crawl across the floor, 99% of the kids could bear crawl across the floor. Now you have kids who are quote unquote athletes coming in. They're playing 3 sports, soccer, baseball, and basketball. And you say bear crawl, and you have to get down on the floor and teach them how to bear crawl. You have to, it's amazing what we're seeing now.
It's interesting to me that you guys bring up these terms like, physical literacy and this degradation you're seeing. Expand upon some specifics. You already brought up one in terms of mobility, but specifically, I'd imagine, just kind of thinking out loud, I'd imagine it's kind of maybe mobility issues regarding just sedentary stuff where maybe the posterior chain's kind of locked up or hips aren't doing what you naturally think a kid's hips would do, but kind of expand upon maybe the specific mobility issues you're seeing in this young population, and maybe just another one in terms of is it they're deconditioned or they're just reluctance to play in general? And Mikki, you can start with that.
It's all of those things.
Okay.
But physical literacy is really a very nebulous concept. For our purposes, we use the very basics of physical literacy in what we're screening for, looking for, or hoping for when we see kids. And that is the ability to throw, catch, kick, mirror movement, and the ability to translate movement to language. So there are many things that we're hoping to see that used to be very sort of natural and we think mostly because of the amount of play that kids used to have, physical adventure and play that they're just not getting. So it's sort of an experiential gap. They're not exposed to things, and so they don't know how to do it. So they might know how to be an expert Xbox. They might be a pitcher on Xbox, and they do a great job of that. If you actually hand them a ball and say throw it to that bucket, they don't have experience with that, especially if they're a soccer player. They might know how to kick, but they've never been shown to throw. So what we used to see was this wide, nice variety of exposure with young kids so that they knew how to jump, they knew how to kick, they knew how to climb, they knew how to pull. They had some sense of proprioception, where they are in space in relation to an object, what they're moving and how it's going to affect the object. All of those things happen naturally when there's lots of movement going on, and they just don't happen when there isn't. And so what we've seen is this drop off. It's just not happening. And so we've got little kids that we say jump, and they look at us blankly. It's amazing. Jeff has had that experience at a different level. I'm going to let him. Yeah.
Some specifics, like Mikki said, with jumping. Like I had a young man come in recently who's an athlete again. And part of the warm-up was doing broad jumps. So 2 feet together and jump. He could not jump with 2 feet. He had to lift 1 foot and kind of skip forward. And so, it's having to slow down and say, I want to teach you this very basic movement. Specifics, things like the hip hinge. Kids don't come in being able to hinge correctly at the hip. They hinge at the SI joint, and we're seeing kids now with a kyphosis in the thoracic that's just tremendous, and they unable to straighten their bodies up. And it's not just like this is not the exception. It's something we're seeing come in as with large percentages. The ankles collapsed, so they have just this flat foot, knees that are valgus, and the hips turned in, and then unable to hinge at the hip, and these are kids who are playing sports. So you have a girls under 13 soccer team, 14 kids coming in, and you have, of the 14 or 15 girls that are there, you have 12 of them that are showing that kind of motor pattern. Can't hinge at the hip, can't pick things up, can't straighten themselves up to lift something safely up off the ground. Knees, when they jump, the knees slam together, and then when they land, the same thing. Those are dangerous positions for kids to be in, and well, we're just seeing more and more of it. It was the exception years ago. It's the common thing now.
I'm concerned we're sounding overly
dramatic.
It's because it's so sad to us to see this, yet the solution is so simple. We just all need to get kids to move more, and move more through play and do more basic strength and conditioning, not just sports specificity. We want them to be just moving more, and so it is fairly simple. In my group, we incorporate play to a large extent. We do intervals of play. We do long intervals of play. So we'll do 3 minutes of something really horrible, something like that's like Fran to an adult, right? So we would have them maybe do burpee box jump overs for 3 minutes, and they're going hard, they're tired, and then after 3 minutes we go, here's a frisbee, go play with it. And then they go and they get a lot of great physical literacy elements there. They start to get to see unexpected things happen, and they have to respond to the frisbee bounced off the wall. There's no rules, there's no referee, there's no things they have to be thinking about, and all these magical things happen in their brain while they're in that good play state. So we encourage that, and then we go back to the hard work. But then they look at the hard work as part of the fun, and that makes it so easy to engage them for a long period of time.
In my age group, the preteens and teens, though, if they haven't had that kind of playing and doing all of the things that they're doing that we used to do when we were kids, or doing what they do in Mikki's class, we have to do corrective type exercises. We have to teach movement patterns, and we have a whole progression for teaching kids how to jump and land, and how to get how to hinge at the hip, how to get their chest in the right, or spine in the right position, neutral position. So we have progressions that we have to work with, and if kids come in like that when they're to our gym at 12 years old like that, it takes us a couple of years of really good solid work to get kids to move, to move well, for it to become not something they have to think about when they move.
Well, you guys said you kind of said what the answer was to solve some of these problems with kids, but it sounds like the answer is simple, but the solution is really not, in terms of a lot of this really comes down to what they're doing in school, right? I mean, and in most schools, it seems like physical education is getting stripped down or taken away certain days, and it's just less and less and less of what we did. I mean, when I was in school, I remember having to climb ropes and do pull-ups and run 1 mile tests and all kinds of stuff. And I don't really see that too much with kids. So what is the solution to get them to do these things that you're talking about? Is this a local problem, a federal problem, a state? Like, how do we go about trying to solve this? Because it sounds like it's a bigger problem than just your kids not moving, because it leads to a lot of issues when they're older that are health and wellness related that cost us a lot of money in healthcare dollars.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge question, and there are a few different answers. I mean, our hope is to educate people as much as possible on why getting your kids moving is so important. On another platform, I guess, we're involved with Kelly Starrett and Stand Up Kids, We're on the board of directors for that organization, and they are doing great things.
Yeah, they just got picked. Kelly just met with President Obama today, by the way. He texted me, and he's in Washington, D.C. Talk about, that's badass, man. Because Stand Up Kids is doing good things.
It is doing amazing things, and with leaders like Kelly and Juliet involved, I think the sky's the limit. So they have made some real inroads to getting kids moving in school. So the first layer really is that we get them standing and at desks more often. They don't have to be standing all day, but standing for a large portion of the day. Little fiddle bar underneath, they can move their little foot around. They can be moving somewhat, helps their brains. All of the statistics, BMI goes down, everything positive going on there. So we have that, and then we have movement breaks. So we're creating some videos that go up on the Stand Up Kids website that are a little 2 to 3 minute. You can do it in your classroom or try to keep it within a really small amount of space. So every teacher could just check those out, get their kiddos moving when they have 2 to 3 minutes. Doesn't take that long. Get everybody to move a little bit, do it a couple times a day. And then we do have, as Brand X method campuses, where we have people coming and doing our training and trying to implement on a larger basis as a PE program or after school program. And I'm sure Kelly and Juliet have more coming in that vein as well. So I think it is a huge problem because it's sort of a cultural thing, what we've sort of allowed to happen. But I do think that we're making some inroads. Yeah. We just have to keep at it.
There's the things you've mentioned where PE is being cut. Whether or not we feel that going outside and playing is something that's really important, it's just simply not happening the way it used to happen. All statistics show that. And then I think, unfortunately, one of the things that we've done as a culture is kind of pair sport with fitness. And this idea that I can take my kid to soccer at 4 years old, and he can start playing soccer when he's 4 years old, and that's really going to be enough. And I think that's something that I really wish that we could make inroads with parents and let them know that that's not really enough. The kids need to do something other than a single sport. They need to be encouraged to be in a lot of sports. They need to be encouraged to go out and get as much experience moving as possible, and to be adventurous. So we have this whole idea of taking away anything that's dangerous. We don't want our kids to climb. We don't want our kids to climb on the playground outside because that's dangerous. We take that away from them, and we take away a whole set of learning experiences that are really important to children.
The Europeans, the Australians, Canadians, I think all way ahead of us on this stuff, really incorporating some of these ideas of sports sampling early and not focusing or specializing until much later. And that allows the kids to really develop a broad physical literacy, a broad base of movement before they start to just be sports specific.
We really like this idea of developing an athlete before you develop a specialist.
Yeah, and that seems to make sense with the kiddos. I mean, we naturally want to move, and somewhere we lose it. I mean, and that's what's interesting to me in terms of this, because as I see this obesity issue, and maybe we come across this with Stand Up Kids, or maybe we even come across this, for me, it kind of clicked with me with the video Danny put out not too long ago, where it was like, if you just stand more instead of sit more, it's the equivalent in the course of a year of what, Danny, 23 marathons, right? In terms
it depends how heavy you are. It's crazy. It's a lot. For me, it'd be like 90,000 calories a year.
So the point for me there is this issue isn't necessarily as much of a training issue as it is it's a lifestyle issue for these kiddos to fix this obesity epidemic. But for me, just to the picture for you guys, it's not so sad though, because you guys are doing some great work with kids, and I think the thing that's important for you guys is, even when we bring up this umbrella term of kiddos, you guys have seemed to even segment that, where I know you have different ideas for training kids versus different ideas for training teens. So we alluded to this deal where kiddos have this superpower of maybe banking bone density, and they have this idea where if you can do some certain things like that. Mikki, if you could, what are some other things that people need to take into consideration when they are working with that preteen, those kiddos, those 4-year-olds, those 8-year-olds, and again, as you get into maybe the difference, what are the kiddo superpowers that we maybe need to highlight so they can then be super teens and the super athlete that Jeff was talking about building?
Let's see. Let's start with their superpowers, because those are the most wonderful. That's the most wonderful part. Kids come to us usually so enthusiastic, great, so happy to move, so happy to be hanging out with their friends or making new friends in a class. And it's just staying very positive, making sure that we're not over cueing them, that we're just giving them some basic rules about movement and then letting them do it, letting them experiment, letting them be playful, and then looking at it as they're going to learn over time through repeating these things. And we just use a variety of, think of the word, we're just going to change the tools that they repeat those movements with. So we just change the environment a little. It keeps their interest, and we just embed those motor patterns by continuing to do those things over and over. Keeping everything positive, playful, and fun is primary for those little ones. And it becomes different as they get older, obviously. So we look at it as what are the developmental stages of kids? So our program matches basically what you think of as school. So you have like preschool, that's 3 to 5-year-olds. That we have, that class is geared very much developmentally toward what preschoolers can do and want to do. And then we have the kids class, which you could think of like elementary school. We've got like 5 to 10-year-olds. The preteen class, we've got middle schoolers, 11 to 12, 11 to 13, and then the teen class, like high school. So, I mean, everybody can look at those things and go, yeah, those are totally developmentally different. And even within that broad 5 to 10-year-old, really, sometimes we have to split that group up because you have older kids looking at, their little sibling who's 5, and they're way more cool than that. So they don't want to do the same things. So we just have to be very aware of what they love at that age, what current things are happening that they might be interested in. Right now it's Rogue One. It was, what was that movie? The Frozen. Frozen was the big deal a little while ago.
Oh my gosh. My kids
still is in my house.
That stupid movie and those little witches that want to freeze everything. I hate them. And their songs, and the kids just want their sheets to look like them. And we have to, I'm on a rant here because the kids not only want the clothes and the toys, they want the dang frozen string cheese and the weird yogurt and the cereal. And I couldn't put more spoons in my eyeballs when I watched that movie. But I met
the actual princesses, dude. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I have met the princesses at Disney. Okay. My 3-year-old. It was amazing to watch my 3-year-old. You would have thought, I mean, she literally thought she was meeting the real princesses. And for me, it was very odd because I in my mind, I'm watching a failed actress interact with children. And but that movie is amazing. That's still huge.
Well, but Mikki, you bring up a great point that it engages the kids. Do you think that this is something too? We're just not it's not enough to just play games, but it is cool to figure out what they're doing. So is that a big part of what you guys do with your program? Figure out what the teens are into and find a way to just incorporate that into your programming as well?
Yes, and yes. I mean, we have to know.
More at your age group than
more at my age group. That's true. But I mean, we can't be referencing our old, crusty old people vernacular, right? Yeah. It's got to be something they care about that excites them, and so we have to use that as much as we can to make sure we're on top of keeping their attention.
Well, you mentioned something I think is really interesting, and Joe and I have kind of chatted about this, and I've chatted about this with some of my other colleagues in terms of how do you develop an athletic base in a kid, right? So you talked about developing an athlete. So aside from kind of the things that you guys teach, what sports? Let's say you could pick all right, 2 sports that your kid could get involved in, and only 2, because you could pick a whole bunch of them, right? But what 2 sports do you think foundationally or fundamentally build an athletic child?
I think we both picked the same 2. I'm not sure. I would say gymnastics and swimming.
Great. And expand on that.
I would say gymnastics and track.
Nice.
I would start a little older.
So Mickey, why don't you talk about the why gymnastics, and then Jeff, it would be cool after Mickey hits gymnastics, just talk to us about what you see in track and field that's so important.
Gymnastics, they learn to control their bodies and develop a good midline strength that you don't see in other venues. So that's primarily why I would look at gymnastics as a good start.
To learn to move their body.
Their balance is good. When they come in and they've had gymnastics experience, they do have a good understanding of body mechanics. They usually have a good balance. They have a good core strength, and they're also somewhat fearless, which is a great element to start with. Somebody hasn't told them you can't too much. I think they've been told more like try rather than can't, and I think that carries over really well to any other athletic pursuit.
And who hasn't had the experience, if you work with adults, of having the 40-year-old housewife come in and kind of say, oh, I haven't done anything for the last 10 years. I used to be in gymnastics. And then 2 weeks in, they're doing handstand walking across the gym.
That's right.
Yeah, that's super accurate. That's true.
I'm still trying to get upside down. After 12 years of doing this, I'm still trying to get upside down. And really, and it's just like,
it's because you won't use the hand flourish.
Yes, I won't.
If you would just use the hand flourish, it would happen.
I would just flourish at the end. But it stays with them. The ability to be, I think, kinesthetically aware and know where their body is in space, it stays with them. And I think it's stunning when you see what can come out of kids who start with gymnastics. And I think that's why it's heavy, and especially in the Brand X method, the gymnastics is so much takes so much more prevalence in the younger age group. With track, I have to. This will shock people who know me, because if I have to, I always tell people I learned how to fight so I don't run. So I don't.
There you go.
I won't even run to dinner. I mean, but the capacity of the aerobic capacity built from doing 400s and 800s and sprinting is just it can't. I think it can't be emphasized how important that is. The ability to run, I think, develops if people do it correctly. Develops the leg and the arch in a way that is really, really important to other sports. And I've seen the 400 and 800 meter athletes carry over into other sports really easily.
So your opinion there is it's a capacity thing in terms of developing engine, motor for future, just to maybe expose them to maybe harder efforts so they can have that not only base of movement pattern that gymnastics might bring, but I guess you're saying track, in your experience, is just helping them engage their engine, work hard to prime that thing up.
I think that our focus would be slightly different. Mickey's focus for kids is different than mine for preteens and teens. When kid enters my program, I want him to leave my program when he's 18 years old as strong and as metabolically fit as possible. So I want to pack on, teach him to move. I want to teach him to move correctly. I want him or her to lift as much as they're able to, and I want them to be able to go forever. And I think that track supports that go forever thing, and I just think it's good. But then track also incorporates things. We look at the running. It also incorporates throwing and jumping, which I think are really, really important and underused as far as strength and conditioning, especially in the teen years. We want to talk about most people want to get to the Olympic lifts as fast as possible. I would like to see kids lifting as heavy a weight as possible safely, and then throwing things and jumping well.
And before we get into the weights, because I think that's a really interesting topic, and you brought something up there that I think we're going to get back to earlier. Danny, make sure we get back to Jeff's opinion regarding getting kids lifting heavy. I think that's interesting, and I think it's contrary to what most people might expect. But Mikki, I want to discuss the swimming thing, because it's been documented on this podcast that if I have an untimely death, it's going to be at the hands of water or falling out of a boat or falling asleep with a beverage in my hand in the tub. So, but that said, I've had some issues with swimming. It's something I've never been able to really pick up. I've never trained it. I have issues with the water. Why my kids have learned how to swim. Why should all kids get into the pool and start swimming?
I think it's very much like what Jeff just said.
Safety first.
The safety of knowing how to swim is pretty important, since we don't want to see kids falling in and not coming out. But beyond that, the capacity that they get from swimming metabolically is hard to match in other things. I too am like you. Jeff was actually a water polo player in college and a swim coach, and laughs at me at my attempts at swimming.
That's called coaching.
Well, I won't swim near Jeff ever. If he's laughing at you, he would probably have a heart attack watching me in the pool. It's gross.
I look like I'm drowning the entire time, but he's nodding his head. But I just think it's the capacity to have those long endurance runs metabolically, and also to sprint, just like with track. We see kids come in with some physical literacy when they've been swimmers.
Yeah, I have an interesting athlete that she was a competitive gymnast for 13 years, and she just transitioned over to swimming, which is a hard transition. It's such a skill-based sport, and she already acquired a college scholarship, having swam for one season, just one. But she's so damn powerful, and she's so coordinated. She's a really good breaststroker. So, but she did both. Next time I see her, I'm gonna give her a high five. And I'm gonna say you're an athletic machine, apparently, based on my conversation with you guys. So no, I'm interested with that because I have 2 kids and I want to make them as physically competent as possible. But when is the time to specialize, right? So you kind of talk about that, but let's say you think your kid has an opportunity to play a collegiate sport, maybe get a scholarship or something like that. When is it time to say, okay, let's cut out everything else and let's just focus solely on this one sport?
Okay, so first of all,
never.
Okay. But
never.
The answer is never. No, they should specialize. The research I think shows that you should specialize in your teen years. That really you should spend the early years learning that movement is fun. And you should be sampling your sports from, maybe 10 to 13, and then you should start to go like, okay, I want to pick a sport. The early years should be all about doing as many sports as possible, finding as much activity as possible. I would love if we could get early kids sports away from looking like the actual sport. So if soccer, if you look at soccer starts at, I think, 3 or 4 years old. You can get a kid into soccer. Yep. And they start talking to the kids about, okay, you're a goalie and you're a forward, and they're trying to have these kids play these positions. I read one time that kids didn't even understand positional play, didn't understand about what a position was until they were like 7 or 8 years old. So now you've got these 4-year-olds who are being frustrated because the coach is yelling at them, hey, run around here, do this. And they're running around. If you ever watch that 4-year-old soccer team or soccer game, they look like a pack of bees. They're just kind of like all following the ball. They're all running. They're all about, an inch away from each other's shoulders. You can't tell which team they're on. They're kicking the ball. Really just having the kids out there having fun and having the coach go out there, kick the ball, have a great time would be so much better for the kids. It would be so much better for the kids. And I think we could do that with all of our sport. I think the focus for kids and youth training in sport is on the incorrect thing. I think it's always about winning the game, making the points, learning the positions, when really what it should be about is teaching kids to enjoy what they're doing when they're young, and then teaching kids in the older years to play well. So if you transition that to lifting, almost everybody focuses on what the kids are lifting, how much they're lifting. And that's the wrong focus. The focus should be on how is the kid lifting? How is he lifting well? If you show me a kid lifting a 500-pound deadlift and everybody's clapping because he lifted 500 pounds, but his back looks like a fishing hook, I'm appalled. What I want to see is I want to see the kid lifting 500 pounds, but I want to see his back completely flat and the movement pattern being looking like he's lifting in 135.
Mikki, you were gonna jump in on that one and bring something into to Jeff's point.
Yeah, and I lost it. So
well, I got a quick thing on Brand. So I just coached my son's soccer team. He was 4 at the time. So everything you just said, I was chuckling to myself. And you're right. They're like a big pack of bees running after the ball. And I actually, my son's, he started doing something interesting about halfway through the season, where he just stopped running after the ball. And I was getting frustrated, and so was the other coach. We're like, no, be aggressive, go around after the ball. But what we quickly realized was he was just a cherry picker. He was waiting for the ball to come out of the little pack of kids, and he would wait near the other team's goal, and he just kept just kicking it in. Nobody'd be around. And
awesome.
So we're yelling at him to try harder, and he's smarter than the rest of us. He just figured it out. But you're dead on. It's literally just run around. There's no physical skill really that they're learning. I guess they learn some foot coordination, but at that age, they just don't understand. They don't get it.
And that's okay as long as it stays playful and it's about movement.
Right.
It's all about snacks.
And here's the catch. There's no coach saying you have to do this 2 hours, 5 days a week in a tournament on Saturday. That's right. And the problem is at 4, it's this cute little pack of bees. And then by the time they're 6, there's a schedule and
that's true.
It becomes not fun, and it becomes not even good for the kiddos. So what I was going to say earlier was the most common reason for kids dropping out, and I think the age is 11 and 12, is the most common time for kids to leave their sport. And the reason they give is it's not fun anymore. So what are we doing wrong that we're putting so much pressure on them, or something that 11-year-olds aren't having fun?
Well, so 75% dropout rate by the time they're, I think it's kind of 15 years old. Your story, you talked about in the last podcast when you talked about kids, about training your son's soccer team, and you had some great drills. It was really awesome. One thing I got off and told Mikki, I just really enjoyed.
What was the drill? I can't remember.
You were talking about how
was it pulling my hair out, or was it?
Yeah, no, that one. That one about going to the barber, getting your hair. You wanted to hair, so you were just talking about how you were getting them to kick the ball, and that you were. It was.
I think it was a kick into the colors or something, Danny.
It was absolutely age and developmentally appropriate. And it was a wonderful way. And I think you said you learned it from the European or something you read.
Yeah, so the league that we're in, they have these curriculums. They are very, very dialed in. I mean, this is a developmental league. Our son's probably not even going to play for another year because we want him to play t-ball and we want him to do gymnastics and, all kinds of other things. We have him playing tennis now. We're just exposing him to all kinds of things. But this league does a really interesting progression. They have it's like a 12-year progression. With their soccer players, and they start with all these color drills with kids, and it's not about scoring goals, or it's not about passing or spacing or anything. A lot of it early on is about understanding how to dribble a ball and how to kick. and then they build skills onto that, and it's based off of like the British model of how they teach kids. So there's only 3 to 4 at a time on the field, and they have really small goals, so they score a lot, and there's a lot of positive reinforcement. Like everybody on our team scores because there's just a lot of space. So versus like 8-on-8, I've seen some of these kids, and it's just these masses of kids moving around, and they all just like kicking each other in the shins, and there's really nothing that comes from. They don't even run. So yeah, it's a neat league. I'm glad we decided to put him in that versus some of the other ones.
It sounds like they're on the right track.
Exactly,
yeah.
And it's also that's kind of what I was trying to get to, is that the focus is correct for that age group. The focus isn't on winning a game. The focus is on, hey, we're gonna have some fun out here, and you know what's gonna be fun? I want you to kick the ball from here to the yellow flag or whatever. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, I had an interesting experience in Texas, and you bring up this 11, 12-year-old group, and it's a common place where kids lose track, and we, as Jeff was just saying, switch the focus from fun to something competitive. And what they were doing in Texas I found really interesting, where as early as 7th grade, they would divide the kids up into athletic period and PE. And the kids who were on the athletic period played sports, and then the other kids were just in regular PE. And you could see it from 6th grade to 7th grade. It was almost like the kids knew, I'm not good enough, and they just did not want to be in PE. It was a really interesting dynamic, and in the beginning, it was all predicated pretty much on let's build the football program. Let's build these kids up for high school sports, and along the way, they just forgot about the regular kids and moving, and it was a really interesting dynamic. And I have to say, you know, to me, it just, what Jeff was just saying, it highlights this, you know, on a really big, and I'd hate to say it, awful scale, just a loss of focus of an entire school system. And this was a huge school system. It's Northside ISD. It's probably the 11th. I think it was the 11th biggest school district in the country at the time, and it was really crazy to see. Just watch how deflated the kids would be in just your normal 7th period PE class because they weren't on the athletic team, and I think that really early for that. But Jeff, going into what
you pointed out recently, that the way people deal with physical education, is quite a bit different than the way they treat regular education. Or you know, you would never say to somebody academics. You'd never say to somebody, "Hey, you came to math class, so you get a C."
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go in. You wouldn't go to in academics. You wouldn't start dividing kids up at 6th grade and go, "You're not going to college, so you go over here, and you're going to go to college, and you're going over here." You know, what's going to happen to that 7th grader when he's going like, the administrator has told me I'm not going to college. Where's that kid going then? It doesn't make sense. You know, we want to find a way to give opportunity and engage kids, you know, everybody. And it's amazing. We're in a very, very small town, and almost all of the kids that have come into our gym, the large majority are kids who have been disenfranchised from sport, and we've had huge success with our kids.
How about Sophie and Sarah?
Yeah, we had one young lady last year, been with us since she was 4 years old.
Started in my class,
but she's never been in sport. Decided, I want to dive this year. She's a sophomore in high school. I want to dive this year. Ended up making the San Diego County finals. I think she came in 12th or 15th or something. Her first year ever diving.
She also didn't she get a national record?
She came in 5th at the USAPL Raw Nationals this year.
Oh, powerlifting.
Wow.
Yeah, she's little bitty thing, about 115, 120 pounds, and she's really strong.
So talk to us about powerlifting, and talk to us about getting strong, because you alluded to this, Jeff, about how you want to get them lifting strong correctly, but pretty quickly, you know, and I think it's commonplace, and somewhere along the way we've gotten this notion that kids shouldn't lift weights early. Now, it's to our understanding, and we've kind of covered this in the previous one, that, you know, kids are going to pick up strength differently. They're not going to really hypertrophy and build all kinds of cross section, but there are some benefits to kiddos and teens specifically to lifting weights and building that strength base. And if both of you guys, and we can start with Jeff because I know that he's into the powerlifting, and I remember he did a really cool talk into CrossFit Kids course that I took with him about his rep scheme and whatnot. But talk to us about building that strength base with kiddos and your philosophy on let's get them lifting heavy. They got to do it right, but why you think they should lift heavy?
Well, they have to lift. They have to lift correctly before we let them lift heavy. Always. But I think that, we had a shirt a while back, and it said "Farm Boy Strong," and everybody got it. If you worked on a farm, you worked on a ranch. I grew up on one. I drug bales of hay around all my, when I was young. You just get strong. Kids. The idea that kids shouldn't lift is incorrect. What they shouldn't do is lift incorrectly, or too much for them, or lift too much that they lift incorrectly. So, our idea, we have almost all of our kids who are preteen and teen are in our weightlifting class, and we've now even started down into the 8 to 10-year-olds. We have a weightlifting prep group where we're just teaching them the movement pattern. So we're going to teach them the deadlift and the squat, and we're going to teach them how to pick something up off the ground correctly. In our weightlifting class, we have basically 3 groups. We have our novice group, we have our JV group, and we have the varsity group. And all of the kids lift different rep schemes and different weights, which we log and keep record of. But down in the novice group, this is just a group that's starting off. Everybody who comes into our weightlifting group starts there. So if you're a football player and 16 years old, you start in the novice group, and and we critique and teach you to pick things up correctly off the ground and how to squat right. And really, once you get the basic movement pattern down, we move you into the JV group where we're teaching you how to brace correctly, how to maintain a neutral spine, and then we start to explore weight. As you start to move correctly, and how to brace. We start to pull you up in weight. And the varsity group is kids who move really, really well all of the time. And and they're lifting heavy.
Your pattern of reward, though, I think is the thing. The consistent increase, and the way that you do that is what engages and keeps them moving.
In the novice group, and we try to have every kid PR every time they walk in the gym. And so for the novice group, it's PRing like on reps. We try to do 21 reps per session. So your first week you walk in, you do 7 sets of 3. So you're doing a deadlift. Let's say you're starting off as your first week, you're doing 25 pounds, and you do 7 sets of 3. The second week you come in, you're going to do 4 sets of 5. Well, you PR'd. I got 2 more reps. In the next week you come in, you do 3 sets of 7. Now you got another PR. The next week you come in, you get 2 sets of 10. Awesome, great job. You've corrected whatever we wanted over that month. I'm going to add 5 pounds. Boom. Next week you start back over at the bottom with 7 sets of 3. Well, we're over the course of a year they can gain 60 pounds on their lift, but it's 5 pound increments every month. What they're seeing is that if they move well, they get to add more weight, and we kind of use that throughout the entire program. In the JV and the varsity, the same thing applies. We look at them and say, almost to a kid, when they step off the platform, they'll ask, how did it look? What can I improve on? Because they know that if they lift well, if they lift safely, and if they don't have any mechanical breakdowns in their lift, especially at the varsity level, we get to add weight next week. So their focus is constantly on how well they're lifting, because they want the reward of lifting more weight. We don't focus on what they're lifting, the weight we're lifting, but they end up lifting really heavy. Last year, I had my group of guys which just graduated. I had two 17-year-olds who had 500-pound deadlifts and 400-pound squats. Ooh. And then I had five kids. The other kids were about 165 pounds. They all had 360 to 400 pound squats themselves and 400 pound deadlifts. These are kids who are lifting really heavy, but they are also, if you look at them, the mechanics is pristine.
We start that focus really in my class with we don't write on the board what the time was. We write on the board what the movement you felt you did best today was. So cool. Everything we're doing is we're overlaying that concept. It's about the movement, not the weight or the speed.
I think that I like that a lot, that kind of positive reinforcement, aspect to it. And it sounds like the foundational lifts you guys are doing, I mean, those, some variation of a pull, some variation of a squat. How much deficiency do you guys see in the other planes of movement, both in strength and control in the frontal plane and in rotation as well? Because I see those as deficiencies in a lot of programming in general, but also it's such a huge emphasis in sport. If the goal is to kind of, create a well-rounded athlete, is that something that you guys are addressing with auxiliary training? Or do you see if you start them early enough and you get them going in the correct way that a lot of those imbalances don't develop?
I think both, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
In the Brand X programming, our accessory movements, we do a lot of throwing and a lot of rotational work. We are, almost everything moves. Let's say like the deadlift or the clean, it moves straight up the body, right? So we spend a lot of time, or we say, well, we're going to work the back, so we're going to do pull-ups. Well, we do a lot of rowing as well, so that we're getting movement in that plane. We almost entirely take out kipping pull-ups from our programming. So our kids all do strict pull-ups, and I have all my 13, 14, 15-year-old girls are able to do hold a nice gymnastics hollow and do 10 to 12 strict pull-ups. But you asked about just how it transitions. Our youngest son to being an athlete. Our youngest son, Duncan, is a great example of the program.
Started when he was 6.
Started when he was 6. Never really did any organized sport. Played soccer once. Played baseball once.
He sports sampled.
But he just nothing really took. In his freshman year in high school, he decided he wanted to play rugby. So he played rugby and did very well at that. His senior year in high school, he decided he wanted to pole vault and went out for pole vault and made the county championships.
Wow.
In pole vaulting. Yeah, that's crazy. And then went to university this year, his first year at university, and went and looked at the crew team, then went and looked at the rugby team, and then decided, hey, somebody saw him doing handstand walking and said, try out for cheer. So he tried out for the cheer team and made the cheer team. That's a huge, very different sports.
Yeah.
But he was just able to walk into all three of those different sports and able to do them with the training that we were doing. He was one of the smaller boys that we trained in the weightlifting. When getting back to that, and I think when he left our program, he had a 400-pound squat and a little bit over that with the deadlift and a 275-pound clean, something like that, with weighing in at about 155 to 160.
The numbers are impressive when you talk about what they're doing, and to me, it makes me think about what then, by building that strength base, when you have a 155-pound kiddo in high school, squatting 4, cleaning 275, and pulling heavier, have you guys noticed, is there now more capacity as an adult when they build this nice strength base, when you have this higher capacity? What are the limits, and is this the way that we have to look at it to win gold medals in sports moving forward?
Have we seen the capacity? So what we're seeing is kids now. If you look at our older boys, Connor and Keegan, they started with us when I think Connor was 12, Keegan was 10.
10, something like that.
Keegan's now 23 years old, weighs about 205. He's decided what he would like to do is be a power lifter. He has a over 600-pound pull, and he's closing on a 600-pound squat. I don't believe he's ever been injured, which is that's that is a secondary thing, but primary for us.
But pretty important.
But primary for us.
Sure.
Connor, very good fitness athlete, but he's recently decided to pursue MMA. So he gone back to that. Just competed in his first jiu-jitsu tournament, came in third. So we see kids coming off of that. We see kids who we've worked with who come back and talk to us. Had one young man who went into the Air Force. He's doing ultra marathons now. And that's a totally different capacity than what we had trained for. But he also has he also, I think, has like a 220 pound clean, 230 pound clean. Last time I talked to him.
The upshot, I think, is that if you're prepared well, you're strong, and you've learned to love moving, you get to choose what you do. It's sort of like you get a. I used to say to my kids with education, if you go to college, you get a much bigger menu to choose from thereafter. So if you don't go to college, you get a really short menu. So I think it's the same thing with physical training. If you have a really nice base and a lot of depth in what you're exposed to, you get a bigger menu thereafter. And then as an adult, you don't just have to choose from pickup games of the sport that you once played. You can basically just choose whatever you want to pursue. It
kind of dawned on me that something that we've talked about in the past, but not recently, is that one of the things I think that the program we kind of came out of, which we love, and I love all the experience I got from it, but we've continued to grow from that. And one of the things I think is that when we first started with that program, it was we wanted to train, just like Mikki said, to be good at whatever sport we were doing. And if somebody came in my gym and said, I'm a boxer, I want to make you better at being a boxer. And I'm going to use this training modality to do that. And we kind of never got away from that. The idea was we want people to be good at whatever they want to do. When they want to step outside the gym, they should be living their life outside the gym, not inside of the gym. And the idea, somewhere along the way, it seemed like the program we were involved with became this idea we're training to be good at these specific things so that we can compete at these specific things. And that started to, where the program said, hey, I'm going to be good at life. No, you stopped being good at life. You started being good at kipping pull-ups and high rep Olympic lifts.
Well, and I think what you're getting into is this is a conversation that was a big part of our early podcast, and something that comes up is this: there is a big difference between training functional fitness and competing in the sport of fitness. And I think that's what you're alluding to. And I think it's all fair. I think anyone can get in what they want, but I think for with all sports, know what you're doing, know what you're getting into, and understand the difference. You can't do, if you just want to be fit and you want to be happy and you want to run a 5K this weekend and then do an Oli meet next weekend, you can't necessarily train like Emily Bridgers 3 days a week and do that, because she's training for the specific sport of fitness. And what you're getting into is, I think in the general theme of the conversation is somewhere along the way we've lost this idea with kiddos in general, is that, for one, movement's fun, and that we should be training for life and movement, not sports specificity. And I think it's smart. Is that what you guys, and you guys can each address this as we get into what you guys do with Brand X? Is this the general theme at Brand X, to kind of get back to the original spirit of training for generality and the fact that we're training for life, not just to be competitive in functional fitness?
Definitely. One of the things that Jeff had always said to our sons is, I won't know I've been successful until I see you as a master's athlete. And that's really the truth, is, are we setting people up for a lifetime of good movement so they can do all those fun things they want to do? And that's definitely our passion, is hopefully to create that. And also, in conjunction with that, or as a byproduct of that, we want to make sure we're making kids safe for the kinds of movements they're going to face. So, so they can cut across the field really quickly. We want to make sure they know what a good knee position looks like. So hopefully we set them up for a less likelihood of injury in some of those specific things they want to do that are going to put pressure on parts of their body. So we definitely trying to create a broad base and a love of it, for sure.
Well, I tell you what, guys, this is one of my favorite conversations I've had on this podcast. I think it's such an important topic, and I feel like we could talk for another hour. We're going to have you guys back on because I think we'll lose some people if we talk for 2 hours. But one is some change, and we're good. But man, this has been great. I really do appreciate your time, and I'd love to see what you guys do in the future. Joe, do you have any parting words or any questions besides like where can people reach out to you guys and kind of learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I know you guys are expanding a lot, and definitely the one thing we did want to touch on is it's there is a thought to maybe discuss what you're not involved with anymore. But for me, I know you're also reached out and you are involved with other groups to expand this. And I know in particular, there's a relationship that you're working with Eleiko to develop. And I was really interested in what that's about. Is this something to bring Olympic weightlifting to kids, or is this just a sport specific thing in general? And then segue into where folks can find you after you kind of address that.
It's really about a mutual respect for kids and wanting to help kids. And Eleiko has such a beautiful, long reputation in quality, and now in education they're expanding. And we have the same goals. We want to help kids in the strength and conditioning world. So we have lots of things coming with this strategic partnership that we've developed. We took a year talking to each other about what we want to do, what our plans are. We're really excited about the things we can do together. Right now, at thebrandxmethod.com, we have online courses. We have a basic kids course and we have an advanced course. We have a youth barbell course that's not online yet. We're creating modules, and we're also going back to doing some more live courses. So, and we look forward to creating more content in conjunction with Eleiko and Eleiko Education.
We'll get that stuff going, because I'll tell you what, I teach my kiddos elementary school courses, and I go to Brand X for my ideas to get going on it. I think it's smart stuff. It got me chunking my my lessons appropriately, I think, and it really's gotten me to think about treating kids differently, not just coming in with one plan and working with 4-year-olds up to 13-year-olds the same way. Jeff, closing thoughts from you in terms of where Brand X is going, what the future holds for you guys, and where folks can find you.
Well, I think you can find us in the next month. We're going to be doing the youth USAPL Youth Nationals. We're going to be in San Diego. So we're taking a bunch of kiddos down there, and then we're having the Brand X, the next day, the Brand X Method Showdown, which is a youth, teen, and junior USAPL weightlifting competition. So it's going to be held in San Diego. You can find us there. And then we're always available by email, jeff@thebrandxmethod.com or Mikki@thebrandxmethod.com. We love to talk about this stuff. So
Instagram, of course, yeah, right? Facebook,
Instagram,
all those channels.
Facebook, the Brand X Method.
Very cool. Well, hopefully no one who listens to this show is going to email you and ask if you've been vasectomized. It hasn't happened. It might happen. It might happen. But shout it out, guys. Go follow the Brand X Method. They're doing great things. Their heart's in the right place. I think what they're trying to prove over there, Danny, at Brand X, that even if you're a kid, if you have a body,
you're an athlete.
Doc and Jock Podcast, what's up? This is Johnny, the show's producer, here to tell you a little tale about Performance Sleep. Specifically, how a Performance Sleep mattress can improve your love life. Fellas, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. Gotta hear this one. So if any of you guys checked out episode 142 of the podcast, I jumped on with Danny and Joe to talk a little bit about goal setting. One of my goals was to make my wife happier by being more sporadically romantic. Unfortunately, I was failing miserably. We got 2 weeks into the year and I hadn't done anything yet. So she was going out of town for work for a couple days and I needed a savior. I called our man, John Maxwell at Performance Sleep. My wife and I have been sleeping on a crappy spring mattress for years, had a lot of lower back pain. Even our little dog, Farv, couldn't stand sleeping on it. So I hit up John. I said, hey, man, I need some help. I need you to save me. And he hooked it up. He got me a great deal on a new king-size mattress. My wife came home from her trip. It was overseas. She hadn't slept well and slept a lot, was super tired, and came home, checked out the mattress, loved it, was super fired up on me, super stoked on the gesture, and immediately fell asleep and had the greatest night's sleep of her entire life. Woke up the next day, was so happy with me. She gave me all the romantic attention a man can handle. So fellas, if you're looking to do something for your lady, if you've been messing up on your New Year's goals, the way to get back in the good graces is with a Performa Sleep mattress. It'll keep you cool while you're sleeping. It's actually the perfect feel for a mattress. It's right in between too soft and too hard. Gets rid of back pain, gets rid of shoulder pain, kind of takes care of a lot of the problems you might have from sleeping that you don't know are there. The best part is that we have a sweet deal for you on the podcast. You can get $100 off when you use the code DOC100 when you check out. Again, that's DOC100. Use it, performasleep.com. Let us know what you think via an iTunes review. Thanks a lot, guys.